to put this into perspective for survivors, would it be fair if 10% of the pallets on the map you couldn't drop? Would it be fair if 10% of the windows on the map you couldn't vault? That's your power as a survivor. That's your ability. And if randomly 10% of the windows and pallets couldn't be vaulted, would that be fair? Even if you could tell, like there was a little icon with a red X on the pallet that you're running up to that said you can't vault it. Because obviously I know as a huntress, I can't land a hatchet here. So let's say you get the same thing as a survivor. You can't drop this pallet. And the killer's coming up on you and you see the red X. You can't drop the pallets. What? You would be pissed. You would be like, what the fuck? Why can I not drop this pallet? So this killer's going to get a hit on me for free, and they don't need any skill at all. No skill necessary. They get a free hit. That's fucking great. You would be pissed, and I'm pissed, honestly. So Matthew Cote just hosted an event in Tokyo related to the Tokyo Ghoul collab in Dead by Daylight, right? And they were going to do a game demo of Kaneki for the Japanese player base. And of course, it's Dead by Daylight, so they aren't able to do it. They have some technical difficulties, can't get the game running, right? So instead, they do an hour-and-a-half long Q&A in which they field questions from the general Japanese player base, right? And one killer comes up in particular. One killer, besides Kaneki. Obviously, that doesn't count because the entire event surrounds him, right? But there's 38 killers in the game. 20 to 25 of them could use little tweaks, little buffs, little nerfs here and there. One killer comes up in particular, and that, of course, is the Huntress. So the question, and what leads to the ridiculous response that Matthew Cote gives, is this. They say, are there any plans to strengthen the Huntress? Now, if you get asked that question by the general Japanese player base, it's not like people were just coming up to a mic. You know, they fielded these questions. One killer is brought up specifically, and they ask for a buff. That should make you think for a minute. Okay, why? First of all, why are they talking? Of course, they're always going to ask for killers for buffs and tweaks and stuff like that. But why this one killer? We're 30, 40 minutes into this Q&A, just one killer, no killers brought up after that. That should make you think, even if you think she's fine, you should think, why do they think she needs a buff? If you think she's fine, that's weird. Out of all the questions, out of all the killers they could ask for buffs for, why is it the Huntress? But instead, Matthew Cote says, no plans to strengthen. And then he says, just get better. Oh, man, bro. I was about to crash out when I heard that response because it's one thing if you say no plans to change her. That's fine, you know. Or you could say, what you should say is no plans to change her. She, you know, bring up some stats. Maybe she does too good in low tier and she's weak in high tier, but she's just too good in low tier and we don't want to make her too oppressive to noobs, right? But instead he says, just get better. And that's what really pissed me off because, like Matthew, I'm a top 1% worldwide Huntress main. Top 1%. Top 1% for 24-meter hatchet downs and top 1.5% for total hatchets thrown. But how do I get better on an indoor map, Matthew? Can you tell me how to land orbitals on Leary's Institute? Can you show me how to land snipes on Leary's Institute? Can you show me how to land arc shots on Leary's Institutes? I would love to know if you could, you know, give me some tips, some pointers, some advice. How do I ignore the ceiling on a map? How do I fix terrible locker spawns? How do I fix desync hits where I don't get the hit even though I clearly earned it? How do I fix the collision of a water bottle that is the size of a fucking mountain stopping my hatchet? Like, how do I not how do I fix them, but how do I get better so that way I don't get robbed in these scenarios? I genuinely like to know. And I'm going to take you through a map where we have roughly 25% of the loops where you can't land a hatchet at these loops no matter how good you are. You're just not going to do it. I don't care if you're Ralph, who has 6,000 hours on Huntress alone and almost 1 million hatchets thrown, or you're me, who's significantly lower than Ralph, like 75,000 hatchets thrown, like 500 hours. And I can't land a hatchet at these loops. If you could just help me out, Matthew. Show me how to get skill and land hatchets at loops where you can't land hatchets at. Like, Was there a secret technique where I can throw my hatchet through a rock and hit a survivor? Is there something I don't know about there? Is there a secret technique where I can remove the roof to an indoor map? If you know, Matthew, how to land a hatchet at this loop, let me know. Like I said, obviously, if the survivor overgreeds it, you can catch them up and breathe down their neck and hit them. But that's not the point of this killer. That's not the point of this killer. That's not why they were made to be 110. They were made to be 110 so that because the power was so strong that you wouldn't really have to M1. And back in the day, in 2017, when she was first released, 110 was fine. It's not 2017 anymore, Matthew. It's not 2017 anymore. All right, so let's check this out. Greenville Square. We're not even going to count these high wall loops because every Huntress knows basically you don't have a power at a high wall loop, essentially. Basically, what you have to do is you have to keep looping until you're breathing down the survivor's neck, especially if they're running like this side. Keep looping, try to close the gap as much as possible, loop as tight as possible, and then try to land a hit right there. Meanwhile, if you're a 115 killer, you would have just got the hit anyways or the pallet given up anyways. Basically, the only benefit is to try and step through here and then come back and catch them. But obviously, survivors can easily use their third-person camera to see what you're doing and avoid that hit. So, all right, let's check out these rock loops. Basically, the double rock loops are an absolute nightmare for Huntress. A lot of people don't know this, but you know, one of the biggest things that survivors do against 110 killers when they're all out of options is loop around a stack of tires on Auto Haven 25 times because they're taking advantage of the fact that you're 110. And that's this twofold. So you can't land a hatchet here. If the survivor's just running around this loop like this, you're not landing a hatchet. It's not going to happen at all whatsoever. There's no possible way, no matter how many hours you have on Huntress, you're landing a hatchet. You could try to mind game your red stain and do something like that, and then land a hatchet that way, but literally you'd be better off mind gaming, coming through and then swinging around because you're gonna make extra distance with your lunge alone. So you turn around and then swing through the pallet. I actually hit the pallet that time. So you'd be better off in every single scenario M1ing. So maybe they loop you around 4 times, you go to swing through, you get pallet stunned. You break the pallet. You run around another 4 times, you try to swing through, and then you get pallet stunned, and you break the pallet. And then they're on to possibly another double pallet. Yeah, kind of like this one right here. So this one's the best example, right? How do I land my power here? Matthew, you say just get better, right? You tell me to just get better. I'm top 1% Huntress mains worldwide. You want me to just get better. You made me a 110 killer to encourage me to rely on my power, but yet I can't use my power at this loop. I can't use my power at this loop, Matthew, unless you know something I don't, and you're actually a god tier Huntress main. Maybe you could tutor me, give me a tutorial on how to use my power here, but there's no opening, there's no gap, there's no nothing. I can't try to hit a gap here. There's no gap on the pallet. I mean, maybe I run around 3 times and then try to. No, I can't even do that because it's not gonna hit. I mean, I can't even. Maybe I could come out here and then do some of that. Maybe, like, potentially that could be a hit. But you're better off just going through and M1ing through, because if you go for it and you miss, well, now they get full distance on you and you're gonna run around it another 3 to 4 times. If you just swing through the pallet after 3 times, you spent 15 seconds at the loop, 3 seconds getting stunned on top of that, 2 seconds breaking the pallet. So you spend about 20 seconds. If you try to go for a hit like that and you miss, now you get to do another 3 loops because you're a 110 killer and you spend 35 seconds at the loop instead of just 15 or just 20, right? So let's go ahead and reload. So this is another loop where you're just not landing your power here at all. I don't care how good you are. Don't care how good you are. There's no possible way. You can't do any mind games, any manipulations, anything because you're 8 feet tall. This is gonna sound crazy right now, but they can see the top of my head right here. If they're on the other side of this loop, they can see the top of my head, just barely the tops of my ears, but they'll be able to see me come around each side and start running. And I slow down to 77, so I'd have to go around 2 to 3 times before I could even attempt to land this shot right here. And, you know, it's all about a timing thing. You'd be much, much better off just swinging through and getting the pallet off the table. So right there, we have a loop where you can't land your power at all. You cannot land your power here at all. I don't care how good you are. It's not going to happen. you have the double pallet loop where you can potentially, but you'd be much better off just swinging through and taking the stun and getting them off the table. Mind games aren't really going to work too well out here, honestly. More doable than that loop, because that's a 0% chance. This is probably like a 10% chance. And then you got this loop. This loop's not too bad. You know, you could potentially squeeze a hatchet through here. They could double back. Okay, I fucking suck, I guess. They could double back and crouch, or I actually don't even think they'd be able to crouch that, but they could double back and avoid it. This side is, this one would be really hard to land a hatchet at as well. You know, not too hard really, because you could just literally just zone around and they'd just be crouching around the whole time. You gain distance on them that way. So, you know, that one's not too bad. So we have one loop where you can't land a hatchet at all. We have one loop where you have about a 10% chance of landing a hatchet. You got one loop where I would say you got like a 80% chance of landing a hatchet at that one. This one, if they stick this side, you're not landing a hatchet. You know, you just got to keep running this one, keep running, and swing through. You know, potentially on your third loop, you could come here and land a hatchet if they try to greed it like that, but you'd be better off just swinging through, honestly. This side, if they loop this side, you got much better options, much better chances. You go around one time, maybe two, and then you come around, bink, and hit them with the hatchet right there. So we're talking like, depending on what side they loop on this loop, you got about a 10% chance to land a hatchet on this side. They can see that, they can see the top of my ears right now, and they can hear me ready up, and I go 77. So, you know, it's gonna be damn near impossible. You probably got a 10% chance of landing a hatchet here. And this side, you got like, you know, like a 60-70% chance. But if you do go for this and they crouch it, you know, they're gonna get another 2-3 loops out of you. So you'd almost be better off M1ing. This is the same situation, roughly. I'd say this one, since you had the super tall rock in the middle, so you had a 10% chance. This one you have a 0% chance of landing a hatchet at. You know, you're not gonna mind game it at all because you can't be hidden at all. You know, again, you could mind game and then swing through. You're going to be much better off doing an M1 because you gain much more distance. So that's your best option here. Obviously, if they loop the outside, which they're not going to, you have a 100% chance of landing hatchet. There's pretty much no way you miss it. Yeah, you'll be better in every scenario just going for the M1 on these loops. I suppose you could take the stun and then act like you're going left, moonwalk, and go right. Even then, they're gonna see you completely the entire time, so I'd give you probably a 5% chance of landing the hatchet. Well, you'd be better off just kicking the pallet, going through and M1ing again, honestly. Then we get to, is there a loop here? Yeah, this loop, again, pretty much gonna M1 at this one, honestly. You got probably a 5 to 10% chance of landing a hatchet here. If they loop this side, you're in business. You're in business. You got like a 70% chance. You know, they're gonna be crouching a shit ton. You gotta throw it up high enough, catch them when they stand up, right? If they loop this side, which they almost always do, yeah, good luck. Your best bet would be to follow them around and then try to catch them right here. But honestly, the survivor would probably double back and try to drop the pallet on you, and you guys would end up trading. That's pretty much your option. Again, if you fuck up, they're gonna get another 3 to 5 loops. So it's a dangerous game doing that, but you know, you got like a 10% chance to land a hatchet, right? I'd say maybe 15 on that side. Depends on how greedy they get, right? This loop, again, Matthew, how am I landing a hatchet here? Can you explain to me where I land a hatchet at this loop? Can anybody explain how I land a hatchet here? Because I don't land a hatchet here. The only way I could potentially land a hatchet here is if they get so greedy and I'm on the 4th time around and I land a hatchet right here. Which pretty much never happens. Pretty much never. Now I know what Matthew's gonna say. He's gonna say, oh, that's why you 50-50 and ready up at the pallet. And then they're gonna fucking leave. But this one's a permanent feature, right? You have to 50-50 at the pallet. Like I said, it's not about can you land your power? Because yes, you can. Is it better to M1? So I could do the 50-50 and win and hit them, or I lose and they get 3 more loops and they waste an extra 20 seconds. So the cost benefit analysis tells you that you swing through the loop to force them to drop the pallet and maybe get the hit anyways, or they don't drop the pallet, you get to hit, the pallet's still up. Instead of 50-50ing, where you loudly grunt and wind up, you lose it, you gain nothing, they gain another 20 loops. If you M1 at this loop, you win no matter what. There's no possible way you lose. Either you get stunned, you break the pallet, they move on, you get the hit, they don't drop the pallet, you move on. You get the hit, they drop the pallet and stun you, you kick the pallet and remove the pallet, you move on. Meanwhile, as if you ready up and you lose, it's your chances of losing are way higher. And if you do lose in this scenario, it's a huge cost. It's an extra 20 seconds on the loop. So again, 0% chance. And then you got this loop right here. Again, 0% chance. Nobody's gonna loop the bench side. I actually did have a Claudette loop the bench side, which was funny as hell. I'm like, girl, what are you doing with this? I literally can't land a hatchet here. And you loop the bench? Like, are we for real right now? But yeah, literally 0% chance of landing a hatchet here. Not gonna happen. Your one saving grace would potentially looping it around 3 times, them getting greedy, and then you coming up here and landing one right there. Again, we're talking like 5%. Maybe chance. And if you're playing against good survivors, your shots aren't always on point like that, right? This one's not too bad. This one's a little bit harder in my experience, but you kind of want to catch them right here. A lot of times they'll crouch, and then you kind of gotta get around and trying to land it. And a lot of the times they'll make it to the pallet anyways. But yeah, it is a tough loop. So that's kind of what I wanted to mention. Oh, and they could loop this side right here on this one. In which case, now you have a 0% chance of landing your hatchet. You're not going to land a hatchet if they loop this side at all whatsoever. It's not going to happen. Your one option's right here. Good luck with that. You know what I mean? You slow down so much, they're going to make it around. I just wanted to bring this up to Kote. He says, just get better. And what I'm saying is, how do I get better? How do I get better on an indoor map? How do I get better to where I can land my orbitals? How do I land orbitals on an indoor map, Matthew? How do I land snipes on an indoor map, Matthew? How do I land my arc shots over obstacles on a indoor map, Matthew? Like, if you know something I don't, I'm top 1% hunters worldwide. If you know something I don't, feel free to let me know. Any of these loops I said has a 0% chance of landing a hatchet at, like this one. If you know, Matthew, how to land a hatchet at this loop, let me know. Like I said, obviously, if the survivor overgreeds it, you can catch them up and breathe down their neck and hit them. But that's not the point of this killer. That's not the point of this killer. That's not why they were made to be 110. They were made to be 110 so that because the power was so strong that you wouldn't really have to M1. And back in the day, in 2017, when she was first released, 110 was fine. It's not 2017 anymore, Matthew. It's not 2017 anymore. Greenville, I think, is the worst example. A lot of other maps aren't nearly as bad. Ormond has some really good tiles where you have a chunk cut out in the rock where you don't, you're not guaranteed to land the hit, but, you can at least try to land the hit. You can't even try here. You just have to breathe down their neck and land the hatchet. So you're essentially a 110 M1 killer. On some maps, it's about 20% of the time you're an M1 killer. On some maps, it's like 10% of the time. On some maps, albeit very rare, it's like 5%, and you really don't have to M1 that often. How do I get better? Is it fair? And this is for everybody, I'm wondering, and Matthew, is it fair that even 5% of the loops in the map I can't use my power at? Is that fair? Let's look at this killer roster. And it's not even 5, it's more like 10 on average, but Greenville score is like 20. It's kind of crazy, honestly. Like, to put this into perspective for survivors, would it be fair if 10% of the pallets on the map you couldn't drop? Would it be fair if 10% of the windows on the map you couldn't vault? That's your power as a survivor. That's your ability. You can die as a survivor, and as a result, you get the power, you get the ability to loop, to drop pallets, to vault windows. And if randomly 10% of the windows and pallets couldn't be vaulted, would that be fair? even if you could tell, like there was a little icon with a red X on the pallet that you're running up to that said you can't vault it. Because obviously I know as a huntress, I can't land a hatchet here. So let's say you get the same thing as a survivor. You can't drop this pallet. And the killer's coming up on you and you see the red X, you can't drop the pallets. What? You would be pissed. You would be like, what the fuck? Why can I not drop this pallet? So this killer's gonna get a hit on me for free, and they don't need any skill at all. No skill necessary. They get a free hit. That's fucking great. You would be pissed, and I'm pissed, honestly. I wasn't even tripping. If he would have just said there's no plans to strengthen her and left it at that, it would have been fine. But he said just get good. Huntress, Wesker, Slinger, and Demo can't use their powers at every single loop, or it'll be a detriment and they'd be much better off M1ing. But one of these killers, two of these killers actually, are 110. The other two are 115. There's no reason for Slinger to be 110. There's no reason for Huntress to be 110. She has a 53% kill rate. You could put her up to 115. She wouldn't go over the 60% threshold. I thought you guys wanted all the killers at 60%, but I guess not, because you say just get good. So apparently you don't really care about the 60% kill rate. So I'm going to stop harping on that, because that was kind of one of my pieces of evidence. I'm like, oh, they want a 60% kill rate, so they should buffer to meet the 60% mark. But they don't. They don't actually want 60%. I don't know why they lied and said they did if they don't. You know, definitely interesting. Again, Matthew, if you have any advice for me, I'm only in the top 1% worldwide of huntresses. So if you got some advice for me on how to land my power, if you could tell me just a couple things, if you could tell me how to land an orbital on an indoor map, that would be cool. Like consistently land orbitals on indoor maps. If you could consistently tell me how to land snipes through walls on indoor maps, that would also be sick. Yeah, those are the main things, really. Also, tell me how to land a hatchet at a loop where there's no spot to land a hatchet at. Like, how do I throw through loops, you know? And this isn't even counting the high wall loops. There's a lot of high wall loops in the game where you literally can't land your power at. You have to chase them until you are able to breathe down their neck. So that way, by the time you ready up, you still have line of sight on them when you throw it. So you're essentially an M1 killer. Like, I mean, if you think about it, if you have to run the loop all the way until you're almost within lunging distance just to hit your hatchet, I mean, you're an M1 killer, man. You're an M1 killer. You just throw the hatchet because the recovery is faster than the weapon wipe animation. So, you know, I don't know what to say. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about this. It's so strange, you know. He says they ask, first of all, the Japanese community comes together and asks a question. You have one killer brought up by name, and it's the Huntress. Besides Kaneki, obviously the whole event's about him. No other killers are brought up. No other killer, no other balances related to killers, anything like that. One killer gets brought up in specific. That's the Huntress. That should make you think, what? This event's about Kaneki. Why are we talking about the Huntress here? What is the point of this? Moreover, you have a couple of thousand Japanese people coming together with these questions, and they deem, would you strengthen the Huntress as one of the most important questions? And you say just get better. That's what was too far in my opinion. You could have just said we have no plans to strengthen her and left it at that. You could have said no plans to strengthen her. We think she's fine, and you could have gave us some stats. You know, she does way too good against new survivors, and she does really bad against weak. Or against really good survivors, but we really just don't want to drown the new survivors, so we're just going to leave her in this weaker state against good survivors. But he says, just get good. You can't get good on an indoor map, Matthew. You can't. This killer's at such a significant disadvantage on an indoor map. There's no reason for her to be 110 anymore. There's no reason for her to be 77 when holding a hatchet. It should be 85 minimum. Let's actually look at this too. We can go through these. Slinger 92 when aiming down sights. Trickster 92 when holding knives. Demogorgon 110 when holding shred. Plague 110. Where's she at? Where's Plague at? Plague 110 when holding her puke. Dredge 92 when holding remnant. Artist is 92 until she starts placing crows. Then she slows down to like 80 or 77 maybe. So it's pretty slow, but that's just for a second. Then she ramps back up. Dracula 115 when holding out his fire. Xenomorph 115 when having the tail tack ready. Who else? Wesker 92 when moving with his virulent bound when just holding it out. Pyramid Head 110 when holding his punishment of the damned. Bubba 92 when charging his chainsaw. Billy 92 when charging his chainsaw. Yeah. Nemesis 110 or 92 when holding his whip. Only one killer on this one killer. That's the slowest. That's 77. That's Huntress when holding a hatchet. 110 overall as well. Stalking Mikey is slower. I think Stalking Michael Myers moves at 30%, something crazy like that. But obviously, it's not as important. You stalk the shit out of somebody from 20 miles away, stalk them for a split second up close, and down them. Kind of rubbed me the wrong way when he said, just get better. Because it's like, you know, and I'm not saying that she has to be 115 or 85 when holding a hatchet. I think that's just the simplest fix. The way you could fix it is get rid of all of the loops where you can't land a hatchet at all, or cut a little hole in them so that way you could potentially throw a hatchet through there and the survivor could still crouch it or double back to avoid it, instead of giving me loops that I have no chance of landing a hatchet at all whatsoever. Maybe create some software or some like type of dynamics where it recognizes it's a range killer, removes the clutter on the map, like half of the clutter, or reduces the amount of high wall tiles, or creates a few gaps in high wall tiles for an option to land my power. You could do that. You could do a lot of things. Also, improving the locker spawns would help a lot. I'm out of hatchets on Sheltered Woods. There's no lockers at all except for the 2 pair in the middle and then a bunch all the way on the outside. You have like probably 50 square meters of no lockers at all. So I just can't reload if I take a chase outside of those areas, but I just got to get better. Like, how do I reload out of thin air? If you could let me know, Matthew, that'd be great. So yeah, I just wanted to make this video kind of rant about this because, yeah, he said just get better. Killer's got a 53% kill rate. The entire eastern side of the Dead by Daylight player base ranks her at C tier on average. The western side ranks her around B tier. I don't need her to be stronger, but I would like to be able to use my power, man. That's it. If you're going to make me a 110 killer to force me to use my power, can I at least use my power? Can I at least use my power at every loop? That's what I want. I just want to be able to use my power at every loop if you're going to make me 110. Well, whatever. That does it for this one. That was just a rant. Completely out of touch statement made by Matt, but what do you expect? He doesn't play his game. Nobody plays the game over there, it seems like. But yeah, that does it for this one. So thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, to all that good stuff. I'll see you guys in the next one.